Hello students and welcome to Introduction to Fermentation, a class in the Sustainability program at Holyoke Community College. As you know, I'm Sage Fernetovich, your instructor. Today we are going to look at this course and the syllabus, as well as talking about course expectations and get into the history of fermentation a little bit. I hope you watched my introductory video where you got to learn a little bit about me. So this is where we are going with today. We are going to look at the syllabus, talk about the class planner and outline, overview, and history. So I am going to put up the syllabus right now so you can see it. This is posted on our Moodle site, but I wanted to touch on some of the important features here. This is a lecture and lab class. We will have one Moodle site where we combine everything. And the best way to contact me is through email. My email is here, and I respond to emails very quickly. Our class meets online, and we are asynchronous, which means we don't meet for Zoom meetings. I record lectures ahead of time and give you that information as well as additional information on our Moodle site. But this is at your own pace to accommodate varying schedules that we have during this pandemic. Email is a great way to contact me. I check my email very frequently and try to get back to students as soon as possible, mainly because I know that you might be working on an assignment at 4 in the afternoon and you want your answer right then. I get that, so I try to be as on top of it as possible. I have a course description here that you're going to look at, and you might think this is very scientific. And our course will delve into the science of fermentation quite a bit, but I also want to point out that we're going to be making some fermented foods and doing some fermentation experiments at home. Get ready for an exciting course. I'm really thrilled to do this with you and offer this course for the first time at HCC. The textbook that we will be using is The Art of Fermentation by Sandor Katz. It is more of a cookbook than a textbook, but it has excellent background information about fermenting organisms and the microbiology behind fermentation. So I really enjoy this book, and I think it'll be helpful for us. I have a blurb about teaching procedures. I'll do a lot of video lectures for lecture and lab, showing you what you need to know. But there will also be discussion forums, questions, and regular assessments like quizzes and question sets on Moodle. You'll be expected to work independently, but you may also have some small group activities and assignments. You might be presenting information to the class in a PowerPoint type of presentation, and you will be completing some writing assignments. I have the course objectives here. We're going to be describing the fundamentals of chemical bonding and the structure of biological molecules with the purpose of interpreting the chemical reactions that occur during fermentation. So we're looking at what's going on in the different organisms involved in fermentation. 2, identify and appropriately handle the microorganisms involved in fermentation, learning the environmental conditions each requires to survive and produce desired products. Okay, so you will be handling microorganisms at home. Some of these you will be purchasing little packets of yeast or certain types of fermenting bacteria or cultures. We'll also be doing some background reading and some online activities to help us get familiar with these microorganisms. You'll apply chemical and biological principles to the making of fermented foods and demonstrate safe and sanitary laboratory behavior as it applies to your kitchen. I expect your online participation in class. I'm looking at the attendance policy now. And the way that I do this is to look at the Moodle log to see when you log in and what types of links you're clicking on and how long you're spending. So make sure to spend a significant amount of time on this course. It is a 4-credit course, so it's quite a bit of work. I hope it's enjoyable for you. Your final grade will be based on class assignments, homework, worksheets, weekly quizzes, and you'll have some lab reports and lab activities as well. All due dates are announced in class, and I only accept late work if it has not yet been graded. So please keep an open line of communication so I know about your attendance and if you're missing things or getting behind, or if you're feeling overwhelmed or confused. I am happy to help you in any way that I can. Even though this is an asynchronous class, I can meet on Zoom meetings, Google Meet, we could do instant messaging, we can have phone conversations, and I can help you with this course. HCC also has the CAP Center with some excellent free tutoring available for all types of subjects. And I would ask maybe for a biology or chemistry tutor, depending on which part of this course is giving you trouble. But I definitely recommend the CAP Center for extra help. I have a note about plagiarism and academic honesty. I do expect academic honesty all the time in class. If you write something, it should be in your own words. If you are taking a quiz that is closed book, I expect you to take that seriously. So please email me for any clarification that you need. If you're writing a paper and you're not sure if you need to use quotation marks or to cite something, ask me. It's better that than receiving a poor grade because of cheating or because something qualifies as plagiarism and you didn't realize it. I work closely with the Office of Disability and Deaf Services, and I'm happy to help any students who have accommodation forms with them. So if that applies to you, please reach out to me as soon as you can so that we can look at that form together and talk about what you need for this course. That's the important information regarding our syllabus. I also have a class planner posted on Moodle that is kind of an outline of what we're doing and the topics we're doing. So also be sure to look at that. I'm not going to go over it right here because of time, but I do want you to check that out. Now, I assume that you have looked at my introduction on our Moodle site so that you can get a little bit of background information about me. Now, I'd like to get a little background information about you. Please participate in the Moodle Introductory Forum, including a brief description of your fermentation experience. Include your name in it and your major as well. But why are you taking this course? Is there a career goal, personal interest? What do you want to learn? Also, introductions really add a lot to the course if you put something into it. Adding a multimedia component is very helpful in this regard, and I encourage you to do that. It could be as simple as a picture or as complex as a video presentation. I've seen some excellent, just really short videos where I get to feel like I'm in the class with a student. I get to know a little bit about them. So share with us yourself so that we can all work together and study fermentation together. Now we're going to look a little more closely at fermentation as kind of an overview of what's going on, a history of fermentation, and why it's such an interesting thing to study. So one thing that always fascinates me is that fermentation happens whether humans want it to or not. This is not something we necessarily control all the time. However, we have adopted it and kind of taken the fermentation process into a controlled environment and used it to make food for ourselves. So what does that mean? Well, the agricultural revolution started about 10,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent. That's part of the Middle East between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. At this time in history, humans were starting to move away from the hunter-gatherer societies that they had developed over the previous millennia, and were starting to grow crop plants. The first crop plants that were grown were things like wheat and triticale and different types of grains. And so as people were doing this, growing grains intentionally, they developed a surplus of grains. Their harvests were more than they needed at the moment. So they needed to store their grains and store their crops. This was a new challenge for humans, And some of the grain and crops got left in a wet environment and kind of either molded or fermented, depending on the type of environment it was in. So this is what we think of as the start of fermentation in our history, in human history. However, we know that fermentation can happen with fruits left on the vine. Apples that fall from a tree in an orchard will ferment on the ground themselves. But this is where humans kind of noticed fermentation happening in their own societies and started being curious about it. Different types of grains can ferment in different ways, but grains, when they're moistened, will attract bacteria and yeast that are airborne, and they'll naturally ferment. So even if this person left the mortar out with just that grain slurry in it, it would start to ferment. They don't have to mix it around, but this person is mixing this cassava flour in this case. However, even though we think of fermentation as occurring and being adopted in the Fertile Crescent, it likely occurred in Africa and Asia and other parts of the world early in human history as well. I don't think that this occurred just in one place, and there's a lot of varying research about the history of fermentation. We know that grains started to be fermented in the Middle East, and those grains developed into a porridge type material that people would consume. And this later got heated and baked as bread. Some of the porridge got watered down and alcoholic beverages were created from it. Fruit and vegetable fermentation can occur anywhere, and it's it's very difficult to determine exactly where people started noticing it first. We don't have history on some places in the world. So fruit and vegetable fermentation, widespread, happens everywhere. And who's eating the fermented fruits and vegetables? Well, just about everybody, and lots of different animals enjoy them too. Chocolate started being fermented in South America thousands of years ago, also in Africa thousands of years ago. And dairy and meat fermentation started occurring. We have our historical records showing it thousands of years ago in Northern Europe, although it probably occurred elsewhere as well. The following map shows, here it is, different world foods. I'm going to leave this PowerPoint up on Moodle as well as this video, but here you can look at some different types of foods, and many are fermented. So I want to just go through a couple quick questions. We have just a couple minutes left here. What causes fermentation? Well, it's the metabolic breakdown of carbohydrates when oxygen is scarce. So it's chemical reactions that happen in a cell of a fermenting organism. So something like a bacteria or yeast going to a fruit, vegetable, or grain and breaking it down. So we need here cells, living things. We need carbohydrates, sugars, and we need a lack of oxygen. These are some short answers, and we're going to explore the long answers through the semester. But I want to give you a heads up of kind of the basics of fermentation. What types of organisms do this? Well, there are many bacteria, many species can do fermentation. A lot of the bacterial species will do a type of fermentation called lactic acid fermentation. Yeasts are known for an alcoholic fermentation. We use that for beer and bread. And animals, surprisingly, can do some fermentation in their cells, even us, in our metabolism. Why do they do it? Well, fermentation allows those fermenting organisms to break down food for cellular energy. So just like we go through the process of cellular respiration, which happens after digestion to get energy from our food, a little yeast needs energy too, and it will do fermentation to get a little burst of energy. Why have humans adopted fermentation for culinary purposes? Well, preserves food, taste, nutrition, and the development of a cultural identity. All of these will be explored in more detail during the class, and I look forward to seeing your introductions and hearing your questions. Bye for now.